Today on Clergy Corner, we are going to talk about faith and civility. Please join us for our lively discussion. Live from LTV Studio A, you are watching Clergy Corner. Good afternoon, Livingston, and welcome to Clergy Corner. I am Dan Martian, pastor at the Presbyterian Church of Livingston, and your host. Please join me on the show today, Mayor Michael Silverman, Reverend Susan Gillespie from the Trinity Covenant Church, Reverend Dr. Richard Vossler from the Grace Lutheran Church, Rabbi Clifford Colwyn from Temple Ben Abraham, and Monsignor Robert Furman from St. Philomena's Roman Catholic Church. Welcome to the show. During the National Night Out, we took our cameras to the National Night Out to ask the people what they thought civility meant. Take a look. We are here at National Night Out talking to people about civility. Here's what they have to say. What does civility mean to you?
To me, civility means treating others the way you want to be treated.
It means not objecting people to any discrimination.
It means being polite to one another. It means compromising, and it means being willing to be wrong sometimes.
I think it's all about mutual respect. It's about caring for one another and being able to understand other situations for what they are instead of what we perceive them to be.
Respect. I would like to say with love in their hearts, because I think we need that. We need to be thinking of other people, not just loving ourselves and what we can get for ourselves, but loving other people and thinking what we can do for them.
Being a good person, being a fair-minded person, sharing with others.
Civility to me means just being considerate of your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, family, co-workers, just a kind of a peaceful coexistence with the people around you.
Listen to other people, and don't be judgmental of people. Learn, respect their opinions, as you would want them to respect your own opinions.
Yeah, I really object to the hyphenated Americanisms. We're all Americans, and that's all we really are. And we need to treat each other the same way.
In nursing, it's one of the best feelings to give to a family or a person who's in need, and then to be able to kind of, get that warmth from giving.
They should be tolerant and always trying to learn and educate themselves so they better understand their fellow man.
Now, with Livingston in mind, how do you think we are doing as a community with civility?
I think Livingston is become, to me, a typical American small town with everybody working together for a common good.
I think we need something that can just show we're all the same deep down, and we are different, and we should appreciate each other's differences.
I think we're doing a much better job. Some people will say, no, it's everybody still out for each other. But if you come to events like this, and if you've been in the community a long time, you will see it is getting better, and everyone is sharing.
Just look at this night. It's fantastic.
What did you all think of that wonderful video?
Well, if you take a step back and just watch the people's reaction, that was Livingston. That was a mix of young, old, middle age, just everybody having the same emotional feeling about civility in a community. And that's what Livingston is. Livingston is simply a community of caring, volunteering individuals. It's a pleasure to watch.
Absolutely. You know, I was really amazed after watching this video clip how depth and how really meaningful that the people really were talking about civility. It wasn't about let's be nice, but it was talking about the non-judgmental, people getting along, the differences, celebrating the differences was part of that. Frank Sheehan, who did the camera work and did the editing of that, Frank, you did a great job. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of laughs. We got to, see people. Some people were saying, "Oh, I don't know what civility is," but they actually did a great job. Well, Sue, what do you think about as far as faith and civility? How can the two, or do the two, walk together?
Well, I think some of the folks in the video were really great at reaching for the aspect of loving other people and wanting other people to know that they are loved. Civility could just mean being minimally tolerant of one another and as respectful as required. But when you're reaching for loving your neighbor and compromising and wanting to see your neighbor get some of what they want too, that's really going a lot farther, and certainly it's what Jesus taught.
Do you think that civility, people know what that word means? Rick, what do you think?
I think they have a general idea. They have the head knowledge of what it means. The question really becomes, though, can they translate it from the head knowledge to the heart knowledge and how they express being civil? Or is another way to look at it, though, unfortunately, is that oftentimes civility is what they want from other people towards them more than what they are willing to give to other people.
Father Furman, what is the hardest part of maybe teaching civility so that it's the heart and the head together?
Civility, I suppose, is taught by example as much as by words, or more so. But it seems to me that if a person is a man or woman of faith, civility follows. In fact, I had asked myself, what's my definition of civility? And in the video clip, the very first speaker took my definition, and it's hardly original to me, obviously, and that would be the golden rule. The first woman said, I think civility means treating other people the way you want them to treat you. And that's the way I see it as I try to live through Christian eyes and Catholic eyes. I think civility is taught by example. We all want to receive it, but I think it's its own reward as well. When we are respectful of people and concerned about the common good and individual good, it's a blessing that's returned to us. It's taught, I think, by example. And I suppose, like everything else, by words too. I guess we should not omit the words.
Right. Now, in Judaism, how is civility being taught? Because Judaism has been around a long time, a lot longer than Christianity. And what are some of the ways that you've helped your folks at the temple become more civil toward each other?
Well, first of all, it'd probably be more accurate to say what are the ways in which I have attempted to help them be more civil.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, I just want to go back to the clip and some of the other comments. I actually disagree with a lot of what's been said.
Right.
And I think the comments were reflective of many, many wonderful sentiments. But civility to me is something very specific. Civility simply has to do with treating one another with facility, with respect, people who are disagreeing, able to get along despite that. And those are very important things in and of themselves. I agree with what the Monsignor said completely. The golden rule, by us, it was Rabbi Hillel who said it, that there's a wonderful midrash, a story from our tradition that says a pagan came to him and said, "Teach me your tradition while standing on one foot," a way of saying, teach it to me very quickly. And he said, treat others the way you would like to be treated. That to me is civility. Now, doesn't matter if you love the person or not. Doesn't matter if you're feeling generous toward them or not. All those other things are wonderful feelings, but those are separate from civility. They might facilitate it, they might make it easier to have, but civility is something we are supposed to have regardless. Civility, to me, is being civil to someone who you incredibly disagree with. That's what being civil is. Right. And just one more thing, and then I'll go. We Jews have had a fascinating lesson in this nationally over the last several weeks. with the vote in Congress over the Iran agreement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in this case, the Jewish community overall was not very civil. There was tremendous disagreement. Roughly half of the Jewish community in the United States supported the deal. Roughly half were against it. And there were a lot of charges that were made of a very belligerent nature. And we now are having to do some repair work, some healing within our community writ large to deal with that. Not our finest hour, I will be the first to say.
But with that in mind, there's, like you said, there's a lot of damage control, there's a lot of healing. When we try to be civil to one another, and I'm sure with the council and with our church councils and synagogue councils, we have our, everybody's interests at best, maybe, and I'm, with that in quote. But how do we remind others that we're here to work together? We're here to listen to one another and help each other out. Is that a problem with the council?
It's not a problem, it's our job. It's what we're elected to do, is to work with everyone throughout Livingston. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. Once election day is over, we're all from Livingston. We're all one unit working for the common good. Now, is it always easy? Of course not. Are there disagreements, as the rabbi said? Absolutely. But the role of the council and the mayor's office is simply to listen to as many different sides of an opinion and then have discussions around them and make sure that everyone's voice is heard that wants to be heard, respectfully.
Well, how are you doing on that?
I think we're doing very well. There are days that it's tough. There are days that people get loud and they get angry. But you know what? The word is passionate.
Right, but is that okay? To
I
get
think
loud,
so.
to be angry,
Respectfully.
to disagree?
Respectfully. It's passion.
Right.
See, to me, if someone comes to the council and has an opinion on something, a view, and they get loud, as long as they are being respectful to the members to whom they're speaking and to the community, that's fine. I keep using the word passionate because that's what I see more and more. Mm-hmm. The opinions are similar. It's just how deep does it go? And as long as the conversations remain respectful, I'm fine with it.
I think we're seeing an example of this, a negative example of this, in Congress at present, specifically with the Republican Party. No matter who you read, the principal reason for Speaker Boehner's resignation from his office from Congress seems to be that he cannot govern his party, could not, maybe a better word is lead his party, because a significant number on the right flank are so interested in specifically what they want that they are willing to deny anybody else getting any part of what they want, and if that means the system shuts down, they're okay with that. Whether I agree with them politically or not, I find that an exceedingly uncivil, not civil way of being.
Right, so part of civility would be to not just have your own hidden agenda, not what you want, but look at the common good.
How about asking those that elected you, whether it be Congress, Senate, local,
right?
What is their opinion? I'm here to vote a certain way, but I'm here to represent what the people that elected me wish to have done, not only my opinion. I'm but one vote. Mm-hmm. It's cumulative. There are 30,000 people in Livingston. We need to listen to as many of them as possible.
At the same time, this is why I think love does enter into it, to disagree with you a bit on that issue.
Please.
I think civility does, the word seems to be appropriate in a conflict situation. But if in our faith we are compelled to love other people, whether or not we actually like them or agree with them, then we need to at least listen to what it is they want and maybe hope they get some of what they want. Whereas our current political paradigm seems to be take no prisoners. Compromising is failing. And if you're not in that situation locally, then that's awesome. Maybe that will spread into the bigger picture.
In the last Republican debate, in the lesser of the two, Lindsey Graham had a great line. He talked about Congress being different not that many years ago when Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan could get together and sit down over a couple of drinks and hash things out. And Lindsey Graham said, well, that's what the model that I wish to use when I am president, so when I'm in the White House there's going to be more drinking. And I'm not sure that that specifically is a good idea, but I thought the model, the image that he was bringing up was a very positive and appropriate one.
Well, it was the sitting down together and just sharing. And I think that's really where civility starts. Not about the issues, it's about getting to know one another. It's about relationship. Where are you coming from? You know, getting to know you. And then let's sit down and let's start discussing the issues. And then, but before I know who you are, so that I'm not going to rattle off and say something that might offend you, because now I know who you are. And we've built that relationship. So now let's start talking about the issue at hand. And that's some of the things that we're trying to do here in Livingston with our Clergy Association, is get to know our public leaders. We had lunch with you and Michelle Mead. We talked about the different things about how we as clergy and the community leaders can work together. But it first started getting to know us and getting to know you. And even before the show started, I got to know a little bit about you being a Livingston resident, and your sister lives in Boston. Right. You know, that's where I think civility starts. You know, getting to know Rick.
Yeah, and you're talking about, you know, with the political climate in Washington and how that's, you know, going downhill rapidly. Part of that, from what I've understood, is the lawmakers aren't living in Washington. It's too expensive, so they can't have a house in Washington and a house back home. They have the house back home, and they just stay in Washington part-time or something like that. So they're not making a community there of, you know, where you might have from different different parts of the aisle, different parts of the country, et cetera, coming together outside of the chambers, outside of the House chambers, outside of the Senate chambers. And what's really needed in that respect then is, as you're saying, you know, coming together, talking outside of the lawmaking, as you said with Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
One more comment I'd like to make. In my synagogue, and I suspect in all of our houses of worship, I don't find civility in and of itself to be an issue, almost by definition, because the people who come to a particular place are people who are of like minds about many things, again, by definition. Similarly, Livingston as a community is a community which I find exceedingly civil, which is delightful, and a large part of that is because there is a certain commonality of interest that brings people to this particular community. But let's compare that back to Congress again, and this is why I think even in a discussion on faith and civility, we have to bring politics in, because that's where civility is so noteworthy for its absence in these days. I don't remember the exact number, but something like over 3/4 of the seats in the House of Representatives are not contested, meaning they're safe seats for whomever holds them. Consequently, 3/4 of the members of the House of Representatives, maybe it's 60%, maybe it's 75%, but it's a large percentage. Those are members of the House of Representatives who have absolutely no impetus, no motivation whatsoever to compromise and to work with one another, because it's not going to affect them personally. And this is the result of many, many years of gerrymandering by Congresses by politicians of both parties, which I think has only led to a great deal of the incivility in the country. I think things get more incivil, amazingly enough, the larger we get rather than the smaller we get.
Yeah, it's interesting that we have brought this show. Now we're starting our 5th season, our 43rd episode on Clergy Corner. And we have been doing this, and the students, you know, have been behind the camera working behind the scenes, and they have looked at us. They've looked at the issues that we have dealt with, some really tough issues, and we have left as friends. We're, you know, in a sense, we are an example of the civility, just not in our parishes and not in our synagogues, but out there in Livingston.
You know, as the mayor and the rabbi were speaking, it struck me that there's a difference between political leadership and religious leadership, I think. You lead by representing, and we lead by teaching and serving. And that's different. I think we lead by serving and teaching. And teaching not our own words and mind, but that of, in our case, of Christ and or the Scriptures. So, and the Church.
So is that teaching by example?
Yes, but yes, it is primarily, I guess, but also by words, by preaching, teaching, writing.
Well, I'm going to head to the audience. There's some questions that some of our audience members might have, but there was one question that I asked our panel about before they came, is if they thought about a song about civility, what would it be? Did anybody, would anybody like to care to sing? No? What about, getting to know you? That's one of the songs. One of the songs that I came up with, it's an old song. It was done in '67, and it's called San Francisco Nights. It's about people coming together. And the songs that I picked were all about people coming together harmoniously, working their issues out, working together, getting to know one another. Did anyone else have a song?
I won't sing.
You won't sing? Oh, shucks.
I will not sing, but Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Right.
It's all about what's tomorrow. What are we looking for? There's there is absolutely no end to what we can do together. Or Imagine by John Lennon.
Yeah.
The sky's the limit, and I really truly believe that. Whether it be in Livingston, nationally. Rabbi, you were speaking about no impetus to make change because, hey, we can have a whole conversation about term limits. Maybe it's time to make some changes. There are unwritten term limits in Livingston. Okay, because there's time that it's right for everyone, the community and the leaders, for change. So don't stop believing and imagine.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'm not singing.
We do have a question from the audience. And sir, what is your name?
My name is Steve Kroll from the Citizens Institute of Livingston. And I'd like to start with Mayor Silverman first. I have a question. How are the community leaders promoting civility in the town?
Well, like the Monsignor said, it's by leading and teaching. We can only bring civility by being civil and respectful ourselves, whether it be at a council meeting or out in the community, whether it be at the supermarket, in the stores, at the ball fields. We see it a lot at the ball fields, and it's competition. It is, everybody wants to win. Everybody wants their child to succeed, and that's great, but not at the expense of another child. So we talk about that, but it is our job to be out there making sure that how we treat others, as you said and was said before, how we treat others is how they want to be treated, and vice versa.
It's interesting you're talking about at the ball fields. It reminded me when our kids were in Little League, in the American League side, and there, the bleachers were all on just one side. So you could be rooting like anything for like your child to as the pitcher, but yet realizing, of course, that right next to you is the parent of the batter. So it gets you really. Listen, you have to be civil. You have to, and you got to realize, hey, it's a game. It's fun.
And the kids.
Yeah.
Well, how many of us go ahead and have the boldness or the courage to go to a game and someone sitting next to us is being uncivil, or they go ahead and they're kind of really, how many of us would say, sit down, be quiet,
Depends upon how big he is.
or she, got to be inclusive or need to be inclusive. But it's true. I think, do we let a lot of things slip by? We know that civility, we should be civil to one another, but in those moments when people aren't civil to one another, do we stand up for injustice? We have another question from the audience.
Tagging right along with what you were saying, Reverend Dan, when people aren't civil, such as in police riot situations, how do we bridge that gap back to civility?
Who would like to tackle that question?
There's a really important word that keeps coming up these days called de-escalation. Understanding that people, when they're in the throes of emotion, are not really open to learning something. So learning how to de-escalate the situation is always important, and then after that, perhaps ask people to behave in a different way. But I think that's probably a missing piece, because on TV people confront one another and the winner always wins and there are no consequences to the conflict. But in real life it's not like that.
It's tough, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It really is. You know, helping people to and nurture them along
Mm-hmm.
to be more civil or respect one another. It's an ongoing situation. If
I think
we had
that-
to come up with a top 10, Bob, yes.
I think it's also, I like that answer, and I think we're really talking about being less self-absorbed, less self-centered, you know, more concerned in a compassionate way about the other person, the other. Now, it seems natural in our culture today, if it is a culture anymore, to be self-centered, but we have to resist that. In fact, refuse that. And again, pursue not only the individual's concerns, but the common good and the ultimate progress of all peoples, which is our role, I think, in the world, especially as leaders.
That you're talking both about de-escalating and the problems. When you've got two competing sides that are just yelling at each other, what you need to do is someone to get in, not in between, but to have the two of them, talking to a mediator, so to speak, to try to calm the situation down, so they're not getting after each other, but yet just making statements towards a mediator, and then through that, then try to settle the situation down. I mean, that's the way you would do it. For instance, if you've got two people who are conflicted, then you get a third person to come in to try to direct their anger not at themselves but at another person, so that they can be as you're saying, de-escalated. How you would do that on a national level, again, you would need someone who's able to come in as a mediator.
And so to lower the temperature, so to
Yes.
speak. I saw a YouTube clip, and it talked about civility, and it said about celebrating the differences. And it talked about respect, and it talked about expression of people, the different expressions of folks. Once again, to get to know people from where they're coming from and to listen to them. That was all part of civility. I don't think really civility can be a definition, this is what it is, because there's so many different other experiences that come along with civility. And I think it's always being defined about maybe what we do and how we act and how society acts too, to one another. But to me, it's about going ahead and letting the other people know that they're respected for who they are. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, and thank you, studio audience, for your questions and for being here, and thank you for joining us at home. Until we meet again, may God's love be with you.